Have you ever wondered how some crimes can remain unsolved for decades, sometimes even centuries, despite modern technology, relentless investigations, and millions of curious minds? Some mysteries are so chilling, so perplexing, that they leave behind more questions than answers. Today, we're diving into the dark underbelly of history, where the most shocking unsolved crimes continue to baffle investigators and haunt the collective imagination of people around the world. Brace yourself, because these stories are not for the faint of heart. 10. The Hinterkaifeck Murders, the haunted farmhouse of Germany. Our countdown begins with a case that feels straight out of a horror movie, yet every terrifying detail is tragically real. It remains one of Germany's most chilling unsolved crimes, symbolizing the eerie reality that sometimes evil walks undetected, even in the most isolated corners of the world. In 1922, on a remote farmstead called Hinterkaifeck, located near Munich, Germany, 6 people, including 2 children, were brutally murdered with a mattock, an old-fashioned farming tool, also ominously nicknamed Death Valley, due to its history of suicides and hiking accidents. But what was found that day was no accident. It was the beginning of Norway's most enigmatic mystery, the case of the Isdal woman. The killer appeared to have lured each victim into the barn, one by one, before murdering them, and then moving into the house to kill the remaining family members. But the horror didn't stop there, leaving behind only riddles that may never be solved. Around her were strange personal items: a broken umbrella, some partially burned clothes, and bottles that had once contained petrol. Even stranger, all identifying labels had been meticulously removed from her clothing, and her fingerprints were scrubbed clean. Despite renewed interest in the case in recent years, thanks to advancements in forensic science and podcasts reigniting public curiosity, her true identity and the reason for her death remain locked away in the shadows of history. Some theories suggest espionage involving the KGB or NATO intelligence operations, while others point to personal tragedy or psychological distress. But none can be proven. Police later discovered that the woman had checked into several hotels across Norway under various false identities, using different wigs, multiple passports, and a variety of names. She had traveled extensively, often in secret, before her death. After committing the murders, the unknown assailant stayed in the farmhouse for several days, feeding the cattle, eating meals, and even maintaining the property. Was she a spy during the Cold War? An undercover agent? A criminal? Or the victim of something far more sinister? The mystery deepened when coded notes were found in her belongings, possibly indicating secret rendezvous or covert operations. Neighbors noticed smoke coming from the chimney even after the family had gone silent. The victims were Andreas Gruber, his wife Shazilia, their daughter Victoria, Victoria's 2 children, and the family maid. The crime scene was as baffling as it was gruesome. When the bodies were eventually discovered, police found disturbing signs: strange footprints in the snow leading from the nearby woods to the house, but none leading back. The previous maid had quit her job, claiming the house was haunted, and the new maid had just arrived the day before the murders. Some even speculated that Victoria's rumored affair and illegitimate child may have played a role, or that it was the work of a vengeful neighbor. Despite numerous theories, the case remains unsolved over a century later, and the farm itself was demolished, perhaps to bury the darkness that still clung to the land. To this day, the Hinterkaifeck murders haunt true crime enthusiasts, with investigators unable to determine who committed this savage act or why. Number 9. The Isdal woman, Norway's coldest cold case. Next, we move to the icy landscapes of Bergen, Norway, in 1970, where the burned body of a woman was discovered in a remote area known as Isdalen, or the Ice Valley. The woman's body was so severely burned that identification seemed impossible. Autopsy reports showed she had ingested over 50 sleeping pills before dying, though the burns suggested she may have been set on fire post-mortem. To this day, no one knows who the Isdal woman was, or why she met such a tragic and mysterious end. This chilling tale remains a haunting reminder that sometimes, even in the modern age, people can vanish into the darkness. Number 8. The disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, America's vanishing man. At number 8, we step into the world of organized crime, labor unions, and one of America's most enduring disappearances, the vanishing of Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa wasn't just any man. As the president of the powerful Teamsters Union, Hoffa was one of the most influential and controversial figures in American labor history. Known for his strong-arm tactics, political connections, and rumored mafia ties, Hoffa had both devoted followers and deadly enemies. But on July 30th, 1975, at the age of 62, Hoffa left his home in Detroit to attend a meeting at the McHugh's Red Fox restaurant and was never seen again. The meeting, allegedly involving known mobsters Anthony Provenzano and Anthony Giacalone, was supposed to be routine, but Hoffa vanished without a trace. His car was found abandoned in the restaurant parking lot. And secrets can intersect, leaving behind a vanishing point that may never be explained. Others suggest he was an FBI informant who was silenced before revealing too much. This is the unsolved disappearance of the Sodder children. At around 1 a.m., a fire broke out, rapidly engulfing the wooden house. Yet when investigators combed through the ruins, they found no remains, no bodies, nothing. It was as if the 5 Sodder children had simply vanished into thin air. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children escaped. The 5 youngest children, Morris, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were never seen again. Wild rumors claim his body was buried beneath Giants Stadium in New Jersey, while others speculate he was incinerated in an industrial facility, leaving no remains behind, reminding us of how a single night can change lives forever and how the human heart clings to hope, no matter how impossible the odds. There were no eyewitnesses, no signs of struggle, and no credible leads that could explain how such a high-profile figure could simply disappear in broad daylight. A stranger had come to the house a few months earlier, asking about the fuse boxes. Theories ran wild. Were the children kidnapped by an organized group? Was the fire a cover-up? Could this have been related to George Sodder's outspoken criticism of Mussolini, possibly inciting retaliation from pro-fascist agents? A witness claimed to have seen the children peering out from a passing car as the house burned. And despite the intensity of the fire, experts insisted that human bones should have survived the flames. But to this day, Hoffa's fate remains one of the greatest unsolved crimes in American history. His name has become synonymous with disappearance itself, and the mystery continues to fascinate true crime enthusiasts, conspiracy theorists, and law enforcement alike. The Sodder family never stopped searching. George Sodder reportedly spent the rest of his life investigating leads, refusing to accept the official explanation that his children had died in the fire. Theories about what happened to Hoffa have flourished for decades. Some believe he was murdered by the mob to prevent him from regaining control over the Teamsters. The FBI has investigated the case for decades, conducting digs, raids, and interrogations in the end. Jimmy Hoffa's story is more than a mystery, it's a symbol of how power, corruption. Number 7. The Sodder Children Mystery. The family that refused to forget. Coming in at number 7 is a haunting case from Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville. West Virginia case that has left generations scratching their heads and a family still searching for answers. On that fateful night, George and Jenny Sodder, Italian immigrants living the American dream, were home with 9 of their 10 children. The fire was swift, reducing the house to ashes in just 45 minutes. The Sodder family refused to believe their children had perished in the blaze. Several strange events fueled their suspicion. The telephone line to the house had been cut. The Sodders took out advertisements, distributed flyers, and even put up a billboard on Route 16 offering a reward for information. Despite exhaustive searches and numerous reported sightings over the years, no concrete evidence ever surfaced to confirm the fate of the missing children. Even today, the case remains one of the most perplexing unsolved mysteries in American history. Number 6. The Villisca Axe Murders, the night terror that shook a small town. Our journey into the shadows continues with number 6, the Villisca Axe Murders, one of the most terrifying and unsolved mass murders in American history. On the night of June 9, 1912, in the quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, the Moore family, Josiah, and Sarah, along with their 4 children and 2 young guests, Lena and Ina Stillinger, were brutally murdered in their sleep. Even more chilling, the murderer had seemingly remained inside the house for some time after the killings. A slab of bacon was found lying near the axe. and there were signs that the killer may have washed up before leaving the crime scene. The killer used an axe, delivering devastating blows to each victim's head. The house was locked from the inside, and all 8 victims were discovered the next morning by a neighbor, concerned that no one had emerged from the house. The horror of the scene was indescribable. All the mirrors in the home had been covered with cloth, and an uneaten plate of food was left on the kitchen table. Who could have committed such a savage act, and why? Over the years, multiple suspects were considered. Cooper by the press boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle, but this was only the beginning of the mystery. With only the flight crew on board, Cooper instructed the pilot to fly toward Mexico City at low altitude and speed. For years, countless suspects were interrogated, and thousands of tips poured in.
Out in 1980.
A young boy found decaying bundles of cash matching the serial numbers of the ransom along the Columbia River. But that only deepened the mystery. Yet D.B. Cooper has become a symbol of the perfect crema man who defied the system, vanished without a trace, and entered American folklore as the ultimate skyjacking enigma. The man, the money, and the parachute were never definitively located. Somewhere over the dense forests of southwestern Washington, in the dead of night and heavy rain, Cooper parachuted out of the plane, vanishing into the darkness. Some believe he died in the attempt, while others are convinced he escaped, perhaps blending into society under a new identity. Numerous books, documentaries, and even deathbed confessions have tried to crack the case, but none have provided conclusive proof. He appeared calm, polite, and unassuming. But mid-flight, he handed a note to the flight attendant, stating that he had a bomb in his briefcase. He quietly showed her the device, what appeared to be sticks of dynamite, and Weyermann then issued his demands: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. One was Frank F. Jones, a prominent local businessman and former employer of Josiah Moore, who reportedly bore a grudge against him. The house still stands and has become a chilling tourist attraction, with many claiming it to be haunted by the restless spirits of the victims. Another suspect was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher with a history of mental illness and strange behavior. These questions remain unanswered, leaving Villisca forever marked by blood and mystery. Despite 2 trials, Kelly was acquitted, and no one else was ever charged. The Villisca axe murders sent shockwaves through the nation and continue to baffle investigators and historians to this day. What truly happened on that horrific night? Who could have harbored such darkness in their heart? Number 5, the case of D.B. Cooper, the skyjacker who vanished into thin air. At number 5, we have a case so audacious and baffling that it has become the stuff of legend, the unsolved mystery of D.B. Cooper. The only unsolved case of air piracy in American history? On November 24, 1971, a man using the alias Dan Cooper, later mistakenly called DB, the FBI quickly arranged for the ransom, and Cooper released the passengers upon landing. A massive manhunt ensued. The FBI combed through forests, rivers, and even dredged lakes, but no trace of Cooper was found. Who was D.B. Cooper? Did he survive the daring jump, or did he perish in the wilderness? In 2016, the FBI officially closed the investigation, admitting defeat. Number 4, the Black Dahlia murder, Hollywood's most infamous unsolved slaying. At number 4, we step into the shadowy streets of 1940s Los Angeles, a place where dreams are born, but nightmares can flourish. This is the case of the Black Dahlia, the brutal, unsolved murder of 22-year-old aspiring actress Elizabeth Short. A crime that has fascinated and horrified the world for nearly 8 decades. On the morning of January 15, 1947, a woman out for a walk in Leimert Park stumbled upon what she initially thought was a discarded mannequin. The grisly details of the crime quickly dominated headlines nationwide, feeding the public's obsession with the macabre. What she had actually found was the lifeless, mutilated body of Elizabeth Short. Her corpse had been severed in half at the waist, completely drained of blood, and posed with an eerie precision. The Black Dahlia is more than just a crime, it's an enduring symbol of mystery, tragedy, and the cold reality that some secrets may never come to light. Some even confessed, but none could be definitively linked to the crime. Known as the Long Island serial killer or the Gilgo Beach killer, This case involves the discovery of at least 10 sets of human remains along the Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach bodies that tell a chilling tale of murder. Deception. While searching for Shannon, police stumbled upon 4 bodies of other missing women, all young sex workers who advertised on Craigslist, and their remains were found in close proximity to one another along the remote stretch of coastline. Over the following months, more bodies and remains were discovered, some believed to have been buried years earlier. The lack of physical evidence, the transient nature of the victims' lifestyles, and potential police missteps complicated the investigation. The haunting image of a calculated predator preying on vulnerable women and leaving their remains scattered along desolate beaches is a grim reminder of how darkness can hide in the everyday, and how some killers can remain hidden for decades. However, many believe he may not have acted alone or that other bodies discovered in the area are unrelated to him, suggesting multiple killers or copycats. Some even theorize that Shannon Gilbert's disappearance, the incident that launched the investigation, was not connected to the primary suspect at all. The case became a media sensation, sparking fears that a serial killer was operating undetected in one of the most populated regions of the country, and perhaps the work of one of America's most elusive predators. Countless theories emerged. Was she killed by a jealous lover, sadistic doctor, a serial killer who hid in plain sight? Theories pointed in every direction, from Hollywood elites to organized crime, but concrete evidence remained elusive. Her face had been slashed from ear to ear in what's known as a Glasgow smile. Hoddle's home, his disturbing private life, and his proximity to the crime scene added fuel to the fire, but definitive proof was never found. The media dubbed her the Black Dahlia, a nickname inspired by a popular film noir of the time, and her fondness for wearing black clothing. The investigation that followed was one of the largest in LAPD history. Over 150 suspects were questioned. One of the most popular suspects was Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy and eccentric physician whose own son, decades later, accused him of the murder in a series of books. To this day, the murder of Elizabeth Short remains an unsolved enigma that reflects the dark side of fame, the dangers of the big city, and humanity's morbid fascination with the grotesque. Number 3, the Long Island serial killer, the ghost of Gilgo Beach at number 3. We turn to a modern-day horror that continues to haunt Long Island, New York. The case broke open in December 2010, when police were searching for a missing woman named Shannon Gilbert, an escort who vanished after placing a frantic 911 call, claiming someone was after her. The victims shared eerie similarities. Many were petite women in their 20s, connected through online ads. Despite public pressure, dozens of leads, and even the involvement of the FBI, no suspect was officially charged for over a decade. In 2023, a breakthrough finally came when Rex Hoyerman, an architect from Massapequa Park, was arrested and charged with multiple murders connected to the case. The full truth remains out of reach. Number 2, the Zodiac Killer. The code that haunts California at number 2? We encounter a name that has become synonymous with terror, cryptic messages, and fear. The Zodiac Killer. Operating primarily in Northern California during the late 1960s and early 1970s, his attacks were brutal and often seemed random. Young couples attacked in lovers' lanes, a cab driver shot dead in San Francisco, and bizarre symbols like the crossed circle, his personal signature, left behind. The Zodiac was not just a murderer, he was a showman of fear, taunting both the public and police with a series of cryptic letters, mysterious ciphers, and chilling confessions. DNA tests, handwriting analysis, and voice profiling have all failed to deliver the smoking gun. The Zodiac claimed responsibility for at least 5 confirmed murders, though he boasted in his letters that the actual number was far higher. But what truly set the Zodiac apart was his love for puzzles. Over 130 years after the murders took place, in the fog-shrouded streets of Victorian London, he sent 4 cryptograms to newspapers, challenging both authorities and amateur sleuths to crack his codes. London was gripped by mass hysteria. Thousands of suspects were interrogated, and numerous theories emerged. Was Jack the Ripper a deranged surgeon, a member of the royal family, a traveling salesman, or even someone in law enforcement? One of the ciphers wasn't solved until over 50 years later. In 2020, by a team of international codebreakers. The case gave rise to the term serial killer and forever changed the way the public and police viewed criminal behavior. And Mary Jane Kelly were brutally murdered and mutilated in London's Whitechapel district. The killer, known only by his chilling moniker Jack the Ripper, targeted impoverished women, many of whom were sex workers in a world where technology grows more advanced by the day. There are still questions that no one can answer, puzzles that no one can solve, and crimes that no one can explain. Each case is a dark mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fears, the unknown, the unpredictable, and the unresolved. If you found this video intriguing, make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share this video with friends who love mysteries as much as you do, and don't forget to drop a comment below which of these cases fascinates you the most. Or do you have your own theory about who committed these chilling acts and left their bodies horribly disfigured in what appeared to be ritualistic killings? He is the chilling embodiment of the criminal who not only kills, but plays psychological games, relishing the fear he instills. And somewhere, perhaps here his dark legacy, still lingers in the shadows. Yet even with this breakthrough, the identity of the Zodiac remains unknown. Suspects have come and gone over the years: Arthur Lee Allen, Richard Gaikowski, and others, each with pieces that seem to fit, but none that conclusively close the case. The Zodiac Killer's legend has permeated pop culture, inspiring books, movies, and endless speculation. #1 Jack the Ripper, the birth of the serial killer. Topping our list at number 1 is the most infamous unsolved crime in history, the case of Jack the Ripper, name that still strikes fear. In the fall of 1888, at least 5 women, Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Edos, the Ripper taunted authorities and the press through disturbing letters, some accompanied by human body parts. Despite intense investigation, no one was ever charged, and the murders abruptly stopped as mysteriously as they began. Modern forensic efforts, including DNA analysis on century-old evidence, have suggested possible suspects like Aaron Kazminski, Polish barber, but nothing has been definitively proven. The mystery remains. Jack the Ripper isn't just a killer from the pages of history. He is a cultural icon of evil and enduring specter, reminding us that even in the age of science and technology, some monsters remain unnamed and unpunished. These 10 chilling cases remind us of something deeply unsettling, that not all stories have endings. Perhaps what makes these mysteries so captivating is the very fact that they remain open, beckoning curious minds to theorize, investigate, and wonder. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history's most shocking unsolved crimes. Stay curious, stay safe. We'll see you in the next video.